It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate, another episode of Frontline Friday with my regular and very special guest, Bridget Gleason. Bridget, how are you today?
I am doing great. Andy, how are you? I noticed I only got one special that time, which is fine. I'm trying not to be offended and feel like I'm going backwards in the number of specials.
Well, what I did is I went with very special as opposed to special.
All right. So I got a qualifier.
You got a qualifier. Modifier, we call it. It's not qualified. It's modified.
That's true. It's a modifier. It's a modifier, not a qualifier.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, things are good. Yeah, it's a sunny day outside. And
where are you?
I'm in Southern California.
Southern California. Beautiful.
Broadcasting from the San Diego studio of Accelerate.
Very nice.
Yeah. So, and yourself?
I'm in my usual spot, the home of SumoLogic headquarters in Redwood City, California. It's also beautiful today. I'm currently in a room that doesn't have a window, but last I checked, it was beautiful.
Okay, so we got the weather out of the way. That's good.
Weather out of the way. We always have to get that out of the way first.
Yeah, that's right. So probably a sign of our advancing age that we care about
let's
the weather.
Let's not tell people that. Maybe they won't know how we really are.
Yeah, my wife gives me a hard time. She says I'm more obsessed with the weather than anybody she knows. And it's like, I don't know. It's there. I never used to check until it was on my phone. Now it's on my phone. I check. I think that's the whole point of that app, right?
I think that's right. That's right.
I do what they expect me to do. So today we're going to talk about some sales stories. I mean, you and I have both been in the business for a long time, and we've experienced a lot that I think normal people in their career maybe haven't, or people during the course of a normal sales career might not have. So we just wanted to share some of the stories that we haven't had a chance to really talk about that. So no real topic today other than what you can learn from us. So I want to start with this. Sir, what was your worst customer experience you had or have had?
When you say worst,
well, I mean,
say worst.
Most contentious or maybe most embarrassing for you.
Okay, I'll share one that I feel like was the most inappropriate, and I mean me inappropriate. Okay, so not the customer being inappropriate, because there are those, but
yes.
Me inappropriate. It was it was a number of years ago. And when I say a number, I mean like a big number, like at least 15.
Okay. Yeah,
it was a while ago. But the reason I bring it up is this was before we've got so many of these random shootings today.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before there was really a proliferation of them. And one of my prospects, it was a company in Sunnyvale, TRW. It was one of the really early, it shook everybody up, where a gunman, he was an employee, had gone in and shot and actually killed several people at TRW in this one department. And it was maybe more than a year before, it happened more than a year prior to me going out and prospecting to this account.
Mm-hmm.
And I was traveling with a sales engineer, brand new. He'd been at the company for a while, but he had just moved into a sales engineering role. And so he was really just shadowing me. I was managing sales, but I was still, it was kind of a funny setup. I was going out and handling this account, even though I still managed a team. So anyway, we'd gone out to TRW, and we were having this conversation with this engineering manager, and the conversation was going well. And I said to him, so, God, it was about a year ago, and there was this, like, and I do the gun sounds. I said, that must have really shaken everybody up. And he said, that was my team.
Oy.
And I lost most of my team and I crawled out. And I had made this, it wasn't lighthearted, but it was not appropriate.
Oh, gosh,
And
yeah.
and the sales engineer after said to me, Bridget, I mean, like he's trying to learn, like, what do you do on a sales call? And he says, is it a good idea to do like, like noises and sounds? And like, is that like a thing? Is that like a style? And I said, no, that's just inappropriate is what it is. It's like, do not do this yourself. So I think for me, that's one that I've held as a,
Do not repeat.
and just, young and inexperienced, not knowing and just not really thinking it through. Now we ended up I ended up having a very good relationship. They did buy from us and we had a very good relationship, and he didn't take it the way that I had put it out there, but it was one that I just felt like, it was just inappropriate. And if I had a redo, that's one that I would redo.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's how we learn, right? Is through experiences like that. It's, I don't know, part of it goes to a little bit to assuming things. But also, yeah, you got to be careful. We talked, I think our last episode about, do details still matter? And, that's an example of one case where really understanding the account and being very careful, really, it's a lesson you learn. As you said, you're young, you're inexperienced. Those are the times these things tend to happen the most.
And we didn't have, again, prehistoric. We didn't have the tools to go online and look and follow up. There just wasn't the same access to information. Not that that's an excuse. It was still inappropriate. But had we had those tools or LinkedIn or any of that, I would have been able to see, this person, TRW was a huge place.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been easier for me to put the pieces together. Again, it's no excuse for it happening, but I think it also speaks to probably my interest at the time and in the moment of making a connection and familiarity and things that in and of themselves are important in a sales call, especially face to face. But there are certain things that is not an appropriate one to make a connection over.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm trying to think whether I've had something similar. Nothing that really comes to mind. I've had some things that were like really unfortunate concurrence of timing, let's say, where two times, or one time with a company where the company was sort of struggling, and we did a round of layoffs. And I had one gentleman that was working for me that I was responsible for delivering the news to, and it was just, his reaction was just so subdued, but in a different way, right? I mean, people are very disappointed. I mean, I've been laid off before. I mean, in startups where it didn't work.
Right.
But it was so different, and I asked him, I said, so, what's on your mind right now? And, he had just taken his wife to the hospital that morning. They've been married for 30 years, and, she was near the end. It was, and nobody knew. Nobody in the company knew. I'm not sure necessarily would have changed things, but it certainly would have been another data point. And it was, obviously devastating for him, but, started adding fuel to the fire. But, I started thinking, okay, how could I have said that differently if I'd known? But I didn't know. I had no way of knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you just don't. Sometimes you just don't know. And best intentions go awry.
Yeah.
We're dealing with humans, right?
Yeah. Well, so speaking of which, I mean, so what's maybe the biggest lesson you learned from a customer?
Okay, so so many. God, I've learned so many. I've learned more from my customers and from people who've worked for me than any. But probably what I learned the most, it was such a good lesson to learn. It was my first potential real deal when I was selling at Xerox. And it was with Ford Aerospace, Lou Espinoza. I will always remember Lou Espinoza. And I had, again, this was going to be my first deal. And I had been working with Lou on this, and I came and I presented my proposal. And again, in the day, you're not doing this online. You got to do it face to face, and they don't have access to go check pricing, et cetera. So I presented it to Lou. Lou and I had a very good relationship. And Lou said, well, that looks good, Bridget. Let me show you this proposal I also got from IBM. And what do you think? And I looked at it, Andy, and I knew what Lou was trying to accomplish. And the IBM proposal and what they were offering was actually a better fit than what I was offering.
Mm-hmm.
Mine would have done it, but the IBM was better. I knew his budget and what he needed to do, and I told him that. And I said, "It's, I think IBM's the better one. As much as I'd like you to buy Xerox, IBM is the better one." And I went back to the office, and he bought IBM. And I went back to the office, and I told my sales manager, "Let me tell you what happened." And, I give also Xerox a lot of credit, my manager, which was, you did the right thing. You do right by the customer. It's not that you called it out, but that was the right thing. If I were you, I don't know why you're sitting here talking to me because your quota hasn't changed. You better go find another deal. But Ford Aerospace became my largest customer because anytime anyone had any project or request that could possibly be satisfied by what I had to offer, Lou said, "Oh, you need to talk to Bridget at Xerox. Oh, you need to talk to Bridget at Xerox." He ended up giving me more business because I had done right by him. Mm-hmm. And it was this lesson, Andy, that if had somebody just told me that, I would have thought, yeah. But the fact that I was too young to know, it was my first deal. And I just thought, well, God, if it were me, I'd want somebody to tell me the truth. The fact that I did it sort of is somewhat naively, and it had that effect. And that was just a great became I've never forgotten. It had more impact because they were my biggest customer.
Yeah.
My biggest customer. I got more business from them because they felt I was someone who would be honest and was trustworthy. And trust, as you know, is a really big deal in
We've
sales.
talked about it numerous times. Yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Andy? Well,
I was thinking about, one lesson I learned early in my career is I was selling computer systems and had this prospect that owned a chain of jewelry stores in the Bay Area. And he was an older guy. I mean, this time he
probably
was,
our age.
No, he was even, I think he was even
really
older. Still,
even older. Wow, it's amazing they.
Yeah, they still existed, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
but he'd owned this been a family thing. He had started this business and it was quite successful. And the jewelry stores were not in the major cities in the Bay Area, but sort of the suburban cities. And we were the right fit for this guy. We had it nailed. We thought we had built a great relationship, and we had. And I trusted the advice that I was giving him. Surprisingly, because I looked like I was 16 years old, and he was spending several $100,000, but the order wasn't coming. And the order wasn't coming, and we'd talk. We had great talks, and I'd ask him. He said, "Yeah, we're gonna do this," and it just And I think what finally he sort of told me what was going on, which was he was holding it back on purpose because he thought I wanted it too badly.
Huh.
He thought I was being too emotional about it and not rational enough about business. He was trying to teach me a business lesson. Huh. It is emotional, it is rational, but at the end of the day, you got to be governed by the rational side of yourself as much as possible. And apparently I didn't know at the time that I was doing it, but I apparently was giving off pretty clear signs that I was just a little anxious to get this particular deal. And he was sort of jerking my chain a little bit. He was deliberately doing this to teach me a lesson. And we had that conversation. And he said, basically put his hand over his heart and, signifying emotions. He said, these are for your family. And they pointed to his head and said, this is for business.
Interesting.
And I always remember that story. It's like, oh, got it. And it's stayed with me.
Isn't it interesting? Some of them just, they definitely do stay with you, don't they?
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and talk about more stories and lessons people can learn from what we've gone through with my very special guest, Bridget Gleason, on Frontline Fridays. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today. All right, back. Frontline Fridays. We just talked about lessons we learned from customers. So here's sort of a random question for you: is have you ever fallen asleep in a customer meeting?
Andy, I can hardly fall asleep at night. Okay, so falling asleep in a customer meeting? Do people fall asleep in customer meetings?
I have.
Oh my God, you have got to be kidding me. I hope it's because you were traveling jet-lagged, drunk.
Oh yeah, jet-lagged.
And drunk?
No, not drunk.
Okay, just checking. Checking.
No, that's an interesting story, because you asked about drunk, because I was in Australia, and had been on a lengthy trip overseas, and Australia is sort of the last point of it, and we're big meeting with customer. There's like two of us from my company there from California, and the rest are the customer, maybe half a dozen or 10 people. And we're in a big conference room, and I'm not a coffee drinker. I mean, I've just never gotten the habit of it. And
well, maybe you should. That would have turned me into a coffee drinker. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah. Well, I did that day, but I started. You get that feeling when you're jet lagged, where you just feel like you close your eyes for a second, and
not usually in an office, but okay.
Yeah, and you think, oh, I just caught myself, but chances are you're out for a little while. And in my case, what happened is, and I can't remember if I told you the story before. So I was in this meeting, and we were basically negotiating a contract, and I, eyes closed, and during that period of time, I had this like full dream. However long my eyes were closed was probably, who knows, could have been 2 seconds. But during that time, I had like an opera-length dream, multiple acts that goes through my head, at the end of which someone's asking me a question. So I open my eyes, and I answer the question that somebody was asking me in my dream, not the one they were asking me.
Uh-oh. I hope it wasn't a yes/no.
At the meeting.
When it should have been no and you said yes.
Well, no, it was a more lengthy answer than that. And everybody just sort of stops and looks at me. And I was just like, can we just adjourn for half hour? I need to go take a nap. So did anybody say, like,
I wonder, here we're negotiating a contract and his eyes are closed. And maybe snoring, drooling, I don't know what else you were doing, but...
I don't think I was drooling.
Okay. And you were just sitting upright.
Yeah. And like I said, everybody looked at me. They were all...
Of course they did.
They were pretty amused by the whole thing.
Of course they were. Okay, I think that's classic. And so did you adjourn for a half hour?
Yeah, we did. So I could just close my eyes and take a little bit of nap. And
Here's
then
my guess. Okay,
this was actually in the morning. And to your point about where we're drunk is... This was a little while ago. I mean, things have changed, but at lunchtime for this company, which is huge, sort of the state telecommunication at the time, the state telecommunications company in Australia, they brought in booze at lunch. I mean, beer and wine.
I know.
With the sandwiches and the meals.
I know. Today, people don't do that as much. My God, that was just normal.
Yeah, and I looked at that and said,
God, we have to do an episode where we talk about things that are more recent because people are going to be like, God, these two, they're in their rocking chairs talking about those good old
no.
days.
Actually,
Okay.
overseas it's still fairly common.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you go to certain companies in Europe and you go to lunch in the cafeteria and you can get a choice of beer and wine.
Okay.
So, I mean, you wouldn't have seen this in the States, but but yeah, they brought in this big selection. That was, to your point, that was one of the few times where I said, yeah, I think I'll try coffee. Put a bunch of sugar in it and some cream and maybe some ice, and I can choke it down. Yeah. So we did get the deal, though. I mean, it was fairly embarrassing.
Yeah, that's great. Was that the only time you fell asleep, or were there other times? You can be honest. Was there more than one? I mean, the fact that you asked that question makes it seem like if there wasn't more than one, there could have been.
Well, a common itinerary for me for certain periods of time when I was selling internationally was...
I hear the excuses coming. Go ahead.
Well, no, I'd leave California on a Saturday and arrive in, let's say, Bangkok on a Sunday and do business all day in Bangkok on Monday, take a night flight. Well, it wasn't that long, but you'd fly at night, late afternoon, early evening to Hong Kong. And I'd do a couple days business in Hong Kong. Then I'd take a red eye from Hong Kong to Sydney, do business for a day, and then hop on a plane home. So I'd be gone like 7 nights and spend like 4 nights in a hotel. So the rest of the time I sleep on an airplane.
Jeez.
And we do that fairly frequently. So, yeah, it started to take its toll after a while.
And so back to my question.
Yeah.
Have you fallen asleep more than once?
In the same meeting?
Okay, so you've answered it. Okay, glad that it's not more than once in the same meeting. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that. Yeah, I said you travel enough, things are going to happen like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, gosh, a couple months ago I had on the show a gentleman named Dave Sanderson who had been on the U.S. Air flight that went down in the Hudson. And he was the last guy out. He's a sales guy. Yeah, he was working. I think he was maybe working. I forget who he was working for, maybe SAP or Oracle at the time. We've all been on sales trips, right? All the time. We get on airplanes and sort of think, well, if this thing goes down when I'm out selling whatever I was selling, it's going to seem kind of fruitless, quite frankly. But yeah, I mean, God, I've had 3 emergency landings. I mean, none coming down the river, but scary moments nonetheless. So yeah, things. If you ask, sorry, what's your most dangerous moment in sales? I mean, they're all sort of travel related.
I haven't had, I was thinking about that question. I don't think I've had any real, I was trying to think of what would be a dangerous moment that I've had. Yours have been travel related.
Well, my first job, which was selling in the East Bay area of San Francisco Bay Area, I had a sales rep come back from a sales call with, a bullet hole in his car. He had gotten out of the car and was going on a call, and gunshot rang out, and the bullet missed him by maybe 3 feet, and he got back in the car and got back out of there, which good for him to have done. But I also had probably the most interesting one I had was a guy that worked for me was calling me from the Philippines, where he was there to see our customers and a distributor, and it was right when a counter coup was attempted against Cory Aquino, and the military was going through the Makena section of Manila, which is where a lot of the high-end hotels are, and he spent basically 2 days on the floor of his hotel room because they'd been told, there's gunfire outside, and there was. And stay inside and stay on the floor. And so he's calling us from the floor of his hotel room.
Andy, you're not helping to try to get more people into sales with this line of thinking.
Hey, where else do you get an adventure like that, right?
I know. And danger. Who would have thought that sales was so dangerous?
Well, hey, maybe it's less so. People spend less time in their cars selling these days, but
That's true. But you know what? More online, more online. But I think that the biggest dangers online now are more fraud. They're definitely fraud related, other than as opposed to somebody, coming after you.
Yeah. Well,
A gunshot wound.
that's what people miss by being in the inside sales as opposed to going out in the field and pressing the flesh with the customers. Is you don't have you don't get some of these experiences.
You don't get some of that good action.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we probably write a book about some of it, but some are fairly common. But I told the story about my first, I think on another podcast that I was a guest on it, is about our sort of semi-embarrassing moments is I was overseas, my first overseas business trip. And was in Sweden and going to call on the president of a division of a big Swedish telecom company. And we'd flown overnight from California and got in early in the morning and got to the hotel and changed and walked over to the customer's office. And they were in this classic old building sort of in central Stockholm. And as I started entering the building, I felt something hit me on the head. Not hard, but then on my shoulder. And a pigeon, multiple pigeons, I think.
Oh, no.
All over my head and my suit. And I was sitting there going, okay, this is my first meeting, my first international business trip, first meeting with this client. And I'm absolutely covered.
Covered. That's classic. That's a great one.
Yeah, that was fun. So fortunately, somebody was traveling with me, and went into the restroom and was able to help clean me off because I couldn't see some of it on the back of my head and so on. But I thought that was an interesting way to sort of go into your first meeting overseas with a international client.
It's memorable.
Yeah,
it's definitely memorable.
Yeah, you don't forget those types of things.
There's so much richness in the life of a salesperson. It can be such a fun and interesting ride because of all the different experiences you have with, especially if you're in the field, but even if you're on the phone, the different people that you meet and talk to and interact with and different styles. I just think the diversity of experiences that you can get are so rich. I don't have another way to say it. Just so rich and so interesting. And I love thinking about these other aspects of the career: the embarrassing, the funny, the dangerous, the weird, the inappropriate. The lessons there. It's just, I think, sometimes good to reflect on all the different facets of the relation of the job, as opposed to how much money did you make and your quota and what books did you read. This is another dimension of it that makes it really, really worthwhile and fun to think about in our rocking chairs.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
All right. Okay.
I mean, before I got on the show, I rode 18 miles on my bicycle and ran 3. So, in training for my triathlon. So there you go.
All right. Okay.
And I know you ran this morning, so.
I know. I did. Okay. Comment retracted.
So, I think that, just our closing comment is before we move on for the day is just that that's really what I think should be what keeps you in sales, to your point. It's, it's not, you can have a passion for a product you sell, but I mean, most of us are going to be in a career, admittedly, in sales. We're going to work for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 companies during the course of our career, potentially. And so it's not like we're in love with any one particular product. And we like competing, we like winning, we like making money, but it's really, I think, the people and the experiences that really keep you in the profession. And hopefully you're open to those if you're in sales. You have to put yourself out there to have those experiences. And, the more you do that, not only the more you sell, but the more you learn, the more interesting people you meet, and as you said, the more full and rich life becomes.
I definitely agree.
All right. Well, good. Well, with that, we wrap up this episode of Frontline Friday.
Wonderful.
We appreciate everybody taking their time to join us. And we will look forward to speaking with everybody again next Friday.
Sounds good. Have a great one.
All right. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.